My phone rang at 3:47 p.m. while I was waiting at baggage claim. The 5-day business trip to Boston had felt endless and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to get home to my daughter Emma and my wife Sophia. When I saw Sophia's name on the screen, I smiled and answered. "Hey, I just landed. I'll be home in about..." Her scream cut me off. "Michael, Emma's gone. She's missing. I can't find her anywhere." My heart stopped. The airport noise faded to nothing. "What? What do you mean missing?" My voice came out strangled. Sophia was sobbing hysterically. "She ran away. 2 days ago. I've looked everywhere. Michael, our baby is gone." 2 days ago? I had called home 2 days ago and Sophia said everything was fine. Emma had been right there. I heard her voice in the background. "Why didn't you call me immediately? Why are you only telling me now?" I was already running toward the exit, abandoning my luggage. Sophia's voice cracked with what sounded like panic. "I thought she'd come back. She's done this before when she's upset, remember? I didn't want to worry you during your presentation." Emma had never run away. Not once in her 8 years. She was a quiet, gentle child who loved reading and drawing. She had a mild heart condition that required daily medication. The thought of her out there alone without her medicine made my stomach twist violently. "I'm coming home right now. Have you called the police?" I was in a taxi within minutes, giving the driver my address. "They're on their way," Sophia said. "Michael, I'm so scared. What if something happened to her?" I tried to stay calm even though every part of me was screaming. "We'll find her. I'm 20 minutes away. Just stay by the phone in case she calls." The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. My mind raced through terrible possibilities. Emma was small for her age, trusting, vulnerable. Where could she have gone? I burst through our front door to find 2 police officers in our living room. Sophia was sitting on the couch, tears streaming down her face. She looked up when I entered, and something about her expression struck me as wrong. Too composed. Too controlled. "Mr. Torres?" One of the officers, a woman named Officer Hayes, approached me. "We're taking a report about your daughter Emma. Can you tell us when you last spoke to her?" I tried to focus through my panic. 2 days ago. Wednesday evening around 7. I called from Boston and talked to both Emma and my wife. Emma told me about her day at school. She seemed completely normal. Officer Hayes wrote this down. "And Mrs. Torres says Emma ran away Wednesday night after an argument. Is it common for Emma to leave the house when upset?" I shook my head firmly. "Never. Emma doesn't run away. She's 8 years old and she has a heart condition. She needs her medication daily." "Where is her medication?" Sophia's eyes widened slightly. "It's in the bathroom." I checked. She didn't take it with her. Officer Hayes exchanged a glance with her partner. "An 8-year-old with a medical condition runs away but doesn't take her medication? That's concerning." I walked to Emma's bathroom and found her pill bottle exactly where it always sat. Full. Untouched. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. If Emma had been gone for 2 days without this medication, she could be in serious danger. Back in the living room, the other officer was questioning Sophia. "Mrs. Torres, can you walk us through exactly what happened Wednesday night?" Sophia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "Emma was upset because I told her she couldn't have dessert before dinner. She yelled at me and ran to her room. When I went to check on her an hour later, she was gone. The back door was open." The story sounded rehearsed. Mechanical. I knew my daughter. She didn't throw tantrums over dessert. Something was very wrong here. After the police left with promises to issue an Amber Alert, I went to Emma's room. Everything looked normal at first glance. Her bed neatly made, her books arranged on the shelf, her drawings taped to the walls. But then I noticed what was missing. Her stuffed rabbit. Emma had slept with that threadbare bunny every single night since she was 2. She called him Mr. Hops and took him everywhere important. If Emma had run away in anger, she wouldn't have stopped to grab Mr. Hops. She would have stormed out empty-handed. I searched her closet. Some of her favorite clothes were gone. Her special blanket with stars on it, gone. Her jewelry box with the necklace I'd given her for her birthday, gone. This didn't look like a child who ran away impulsively. This looked like someone had packed for her. I found Sophia in the kitchen, staring at her phone. "Where are Emma's things?" I asked quietly. Sophia looked up, startled. "What things?" I held up the empty spot on Emma's shelf where Mr. Hops usually sat. "Her rabbit. Her blanket. Some of her clothes. They're all gone." Sophia's face went pale, then flushed. I don't know. Maybe she took them with her? An 8-year-old running away in anger doesn't carefully pack a bag with her favorite possessions. I walked to the kitchen trash can and started going through it, ignoring Sophia's protests. Buried under coffee grounds and food scraps, I found a crumpled receipt. Storage World. Unit 247. Rented 3 days ago, Thursday, the day after I left for Boston. What's this? I held up the receipt. Sophia's eyes went wide. I don't know. That's not mine. I pulled out my phone and called the storage facility. Hi, this is Michael Torres. My wife rented a unit a few days ago and I need to confirm the address. The employee checked. Yes, sir. Unit 247 rented under Sophia Torres on Thursday. The unit is paid through next month. I hung up and stared at my wife. Why did you rent a storage unit the day after I left? Sophia stood up quickly. Michael, I can explain. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Mr. Torres? This is Patricia Reeves from Child Protective Services. We need you to come to our office immediately. It's about your daughter Emma. I couldn't breathe. Sophia grabbed my arm. What? What about Emma? I pulled away from her and spoke into the phone. Is she okay? Is Emma okay? Patricia's voice was calm and professional. Yes, Mr. Torres. Emma is safe. She's here with us. But we need to speak with you in person as soon as possible. Safe. Emma was safe. I felt my knees go weak with relief. I'm coming right now. Where are you located? Patricia gave me the address, 20 minutes away. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Sophia followed me. Michael, wait. I'm coming with you. I turned to face her. For the first time, I really looked at my wife. Her eyes were red from crying, but something about her whole demeanor felt off. Calculated. No. You stay here. I'll call you after I see Emma. I didn't wait for her response. I got in my car and drove to CPS faster than I should have, my mind racing. Emma was safe. That was all that mattered. But how did she end up with Child Protective Services? Where had she been for 2 days? Patricia Reeves met me in the lobby, a kind-faced woman in her 50s. Mr. Torres, thank you for coming so quickly. Emma is in one of our family rooms. Before you see her, I need to explain the situation. I was barely listening. I needed to see my daughter. Please just tell me if she's hurt. Patricia shook her head. Physically, she's okay. Dehydrated, exhausted, some minor cuts and bruises on her feet. We've had a doctor examine her. Emotionally, she's traumatized, Mr. Torres. She was found yesterday morning by a truck driver on Highway 87, about 60 miles from your home. 60 miles? How did she get 60 miles away? Patricia's expression turned grave. She says she walked 4 hours. She was found wandering on the shoulder of a rural highway, crying and calling for help. The truck driver brought her to the nearest police station and they contacted us. I felt like I'd been punched. Emma had walked for hours on a highway? She could have been killed. Where exactly was she found? Patricia pulled out a map and pointed to a location far outside the city, in a heavily wooded rural area. Here. There's nothing out there but forest and a few dirt roads. Patricia led me to a small room with colorful walls and toys scattered around. Emma was sitting on a couch, clutching a blanket, her face pale and tear-streaked. When she saw me, she screamed, "Daddy," and ran into my arms. I held her so tight I was afraid I might hurt her, but I couldn't let go. My baby was alive. She was safe. I buried my face in her hair and let myself cry. I've got you, sweetheart. You're safe now. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Emma sobbed against my chest. I thought you weren't coming back. I thought nobody would find me. After a few minutes, Patricia gently suggested Emma tell me what happened. Emma pulled back, her small face serious and scared. Daddy, Mommy left me in the woods. My blood went cold. What? Emma's voice was small and shaking. Mommy and Uncle Kyle drove me far away. They said we were going on an adventure. But then they stopped the car and told me to get out and wait. They said they'd be right back. But they never came back, Daddy. I waited and waited, but they never came back. I looked at Patricia, who nodded grimly. She's been consistent with this story since she was found. She says your wife and a man named Kyle drove her to a remote area and left her there. Uncle Kyle. Sophia didn't have a brother named Kyle. I'd never heard that name before. Who is Kyle? Patricia consulted her notes. Emma described him as Mommy's friend from work. A man who's been coming to the house. My mind was reeling. Sophia's friend from work? Coming to our house? Emma continued, her voice breaking. It was getting dark and I was scared. I started walking because I remembered you said if I'm ever lost, I should find a road. I walked and walked. My feet hurt so bad. I was so thirsty. She started crying again. I thought you didn't love me anymore. I thought that's why Mommy left me there. I held her close, rage building in my chest alongside the grief. Emma, baby, listen to me. I love you more than anything in the world. I would never, ever leave you. What Mommy did was wrong. So wrong. But you're safe now, and I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Patricia took me aside while a CPS counselor stayed with Emma. Mr. Torres, we've already contacted the police. This is a criminal matter. Child endangerment at minimum, possibly attempted abandonment. Do you know who Kyle is? I shook my head, my mind racing. I've never heard my wife mention anyone named Kyle. I need to check something. I pulled out my phone and logged into our cell phone account. We had a joint plan, so I had legal access to all the records. I searched Sophia's call and text log. There, dozens of calls and hundreds of text messages to a number I didn't recognize over the past 4 months. All while I was at work or traveling. I clicked on the most recent messages and my stomach turned. I can't wait to start fresh with you. She's the only thing standing in our way. After this week, it'll just be us. The messages were from 3 days ago. The day after I left for Boston. Patricia read over my shoulder and immediately called Detective James Martinez, who arrived within 30 minutes. Detective Martinez was a serious man in his 40s who listened to Emma's story with growing anger in his eyes. Mr. Torres, I need you to understand something. If what Emma is saying is true, and I have no reason to doubt her, your wife and this Kyle person committed a serious felony. We're talking about child endangerment, reckless abandonment, possibly conspiracy. I showed him the text messages. His jaw tightened. Can I have permission to access these records officially? I nodded. Whatever you need. I want to know everything. Detective Martinez made some calls while I sat with Emma. She had fallen asleep against my shoulder, exhausted. Patricia brought me coffee and sat down. Mr. Torres, I need to tell you that Emma can't go home right now. Not if your wife is there. My heart sank. Where will she stay? Patricia's expression softened. You can take her, but only if your wife is removed from the home. We need to ensure Emma's safety. Can you arrange somewhere else for your wife to stay while we investigate? I didn't hesitate. I'll handle it. I called my lawyer, Brian Walsh, and explained everything. Within 2 hours, I had filed for an emergency custody order and a temporary restraining order against Sophia. By the time Emma and I returned home that evening, a police officer was there serving Sophia with the restraining order. She had to pack a bag and leave immediately. Sophia saw Emma and tried to rush toward her. Emma, baby, you're okay. I was so worried. Emma hid behind me, shaking. The officer stepped between them. Ma'am, you need to stop. You're not allowed within 500 feet of the child. Sophia's face crumpled. Michael, please. You don't understand. This is all a misunderstanding. I kept my voice deadly calm. Emma told me everything. You and Kyle drove her 60 miles into the woods and left her there to die. Sophia's face went white. That's not what happened. She's confused. She doesn't understand. The officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, you have 10 minutes to pack essentials. Everything else can be retrieved later with police escort. I took Emma upstairs while Sophia packed. Emma whispered, Is Mommy going to leave me in the woods again? I knelt down to her level. No, sweetheart. Mommy is never going to hurt you again. I promise you that. 10 minutes later, Sophia left our house in tears, glaring at me with something that looked like pure hatred. Over the next week, Detective Martinez and his team worked quickly. They pulled security footage from a gas station on Highway 87, time-stamped Wednesday evening at 6:47 p.m. It showed Sophia's car pulling in for gas. Sophia was driving. A man I'd never seen before, Kyle, was in the passenger seat. And in the back seat, clearly visible, was Emma. They were heading toward the exact rural area where Emma was eventually found. The footage was damning. Emma hadn't run away. She'd been driven there and abandoned. Detective Martinez brought me to the station to watch the footage. Mr. Torres, we've identified the man as Kyle Patterson, age 36. Works in accounting at Westfield Marketing, the same company where your wife works. I watched the screen as Kyle pumped gas while Sophia went inside. Emma sat in the back seat looking small and scared. What happens now? I asked. Martinez looked grim. We've got enough for arrest warrants. We're bringing both of them in today for questioning. That afternoon, Sophia and Kyle were both arrested at their workplace. The charges: child endangerment, reckless abandonment, and conspiracy. When Detective Martinez interrogated Kyle, the man cracked within 20 minutes. I watched through the one-way glass as Kyle, sweating and pale, started talking. It wasn't my idea, Kyle said, his voice shaking. Sophia planned everything. She said Emma was the only thing keeping her trapped in a dead marriage. She said if Emma wasn't in the picture, we could be together. Martinez leaned forward. So you helped her abandon an 8-year-old child in the woods? Kyle put his head in his hands. I told her it was crazy. But she was obsessed. She kept saying Emma would be fine, that someone would find her quickly. She said we'd just leave her somewhere visible and call it in anonymously after an hour. Martinez's voice was ice cold. You left that child in a remote area with no water, no food, and no medication she needed for her heart condition. She walked for 8 hours before being found. She could have died. Kyle started crying. I know. God, I know. I've been sick about it. I tried to tell Sophia we should turn around, but she said it was too late, that we had to commit. Detective Martinez brought me the recording of Kyle's confession. Mr. Torres, with this testimony, we have a solid case. Kyle is willing to testify against Sophia in exchange for a reduced sentence. I watched the video of Kyle's breakdown, and I felt nothing but contempt. This man had helped my wife try to kill our daughter. Because that's what it was, attempted murder, even if they were too cowardly to admit it. What kind of reduced sentence? I asked. Martinez consulted his notes. The DA is offering 3 years with possibility of parole in exchange for full cooperation and testimony. Without the deal, he's looking at 10 years. 3 years felt like nothing compared to what they'd done. But if it meant putting Sophia away for longer, I'd accept it. Do it. I want her to face the maximum penalty. That evening, the story broke on local news. Mother arrested for allegedly abandoning daughter in woods for affair. Sophia's face was plastered across every channel. My phone exploded with calls from friends, family, colleagues, everyone shocked and horrified. Sophia's mother called me, sobbing. Michael, I don't understand. How could she do this? That's my granddaughter. My Sophia would never. Your Sophia did, I interrupted. Emma almost died because your daughter wanted to start a new life with her affair partner. Sophia's mother, Carolyn, was crying so hard she could barely speak. I'm so sorry. Is Emma okay? Can I see her? I softened slightly. Carolyn had always been kind to Emma. She's traumatized but physically okay. She's in therapy. When she's ready, I'll arrange a visit. After I hung up, I held Emma close. She'd been having nightmares every night, waking up screaming, convinced she was back in the woods. The therapist said it would take time, possibly years, to recover from this trauma. Sophia's betrayal had broken something fundamental in our daughter's sense of safety. The next day, Sophia's high-priced lawyer, Harrison Blackwell, called me. Mr. Torres, my client would like to arrange a supervised visitation with Emma. As her mother, she has rights. I cut him off. Your client abandoned my daughter in the woods to die. She has no rights. I have full emergency custody and a restraining order. Tell Sophia she'll see Emma when hell freezes over. Blackwell's voice turned cold. This isn't over, Mr. Torres. We'll be fighting for visitation rights. I hung up and called my own lawyer. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Brian Walsh prepared me for what to expect. Sophia's lawyer is going to argue that she had a mental health crisis, that she wasn't in her right mind. They'll try to paint this as a temporary lapse in judgment rather than premeditated abandonment. I showed Brian the text messages I'd found, months of planning with Kyle about starting fresh and Emma being the problem. This wasn't temporary. This was calculated. The courtroom was packed with reporters when the day came. Sophia sat at the defendant's table in a conservative dress, looking small and remorseful. It was an act. I knew her well enough to see through it. Judge Helen Brennan presided, a stern woman in her 60s known for being tough on child welfare cases. Blackwell presented his case first. Your Honor, my client is a loving mother who made a terrible mistake during a mental health crisis. She's willing to undergo psychiatric evaluation and treatment. She's willing to accept supervised visitation. She loves her daughter. Then it was our turn. Brian Walsh methodically presented the evidence. The text messages planning to remove the obstacle. The security footage showing them driving Emma to the remote location. Kyle's confession detailing Sophia's premeditation. Emma's own statement, taken by a child psychologist. The medical records showing Emma's dehydration and injuries from walking 8 hours on a highway. When Brian finished, Judge Brennan looked at Sophia with barely concealed disgust. Mrs. Torres, I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen many cases of parental neglect. But deliberately driving your 8-year-old daughter, a child with a heart condition, 60 miles into the woods and abandoning her? This is beyond neglect. This is attempted murder. Sophia started crying. Your Honor, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in love and I made a horrible mistake. Judge Brennan held up her hand. Love doesn't make you abandon your child. Mental illness doesn't make you plan this for months. The evidence shows clear premeditation and callous disregard for your daughter's life. The judge's ruling was swift and absolute. Full custody to the father. No visitation rights without mother completing court-ordered psychiatric evaluation and parenting classes. Even then, only supervised visitation that the child must consent to. Sophia broke down in court, screaming at me. You're turning her against me. You're poisoning her. She's my daughter too. The bailiff had to restrain her as she tried to rush toward me. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction as they escorted her from the courtroom. Outside, reporters swarmed me. I gave a brief statement. My only concern is my daughter's well-being and safety. The court has made the right decision. That night, Emma asked me the question I'd been dreading. Daddy, why did Mommy want to get rid of me? Was I bad? I held her close and chose my words carefully. No, baby. You were never bad. Not even for 1 second. Sometimes adults make terrible choices that have nothing to do with the children in their lives. Mommy made a very bad choice, and she's going to have to face the consequences. But you are perfect, and loved, and wanted. Always. Emma cried herself to sleep in my arms. The next phase was the criminal trial. The district attorney, Melissa Bradford, was pursuing maximum charges against both Sophia and Kyle. Kyle took his plea deal, 3 years in prison in exchange for his testimony against Sophia. The recorded statement he gave was damning. Sophia contacted me in March about her marriage problems. We started an affair in April. By June, she was talking about how much easier life would be without Emma. I thought she was just venting. But in August, she started planning. She looked up remote areas where a child might not be found quickly. She talked about making it look like Emma ran away. I should have stopped it. I should have reported it. Instead, I helped her. I drove to her house that Wednesday after her husband left for his trip. We put Emma in the car and told her we were going on an adventure. We drove for over an hour. When we got to the woods, Sophia told Emma to get out and wait by a big tree, that we'd be right back. Emma believed her. She got out of the car. We drove away and left her there. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of people crying. I sat in the gallery, forcing myself to listen to every word. I needed to hear it all. Sophia's trial began in November, 3 months after Emma's rescue. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The text messages. The security footage. Kyle's testimony. Emma's statement to the child psychologist, played on video to avoid traumatizing her further. In the video, Emma's small voice explained what happened. Mommy said we were going to see fireflies. Uncle Kyle was driving. We drove for a really long time. When we stopped, it was getting dark. Mommy said I should wait by the big tree and they would come right back with a surprise. I waited and waited. It got dark and I got scared. I called for Mommy but nobody came. I started walking because Daddy always said if you're lost, find a road. I walked until my feet hurt really bad. A nice man in a truck found me and gave me water. He said I was very brave. The jury was openly crying. Sophia's defense attorney tried to argue temporary insanity, postpartum depression delayed by 8 years, extreme emotional distress. None of it held up against the evidence of planning and premeditation. The trial lasted 5 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When the verdict came back, I held my breath. On the count of child endangerment in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of reckless abandonment of a minor, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. Sophia collapsed at the defense table, sobbing. I felt Emma squeeze my hand. I'd brought her to hear the verdict, with her therapist's approval. She needed to know that justice was being served. Judge Brennan set sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, the courtroom was packed again. Before the judge pronounced sentence, she allowed victim impact statements. I stood and read mine. Your Honor, my daughter Emma will carry the scars of her mother's betrayal for the rest of her life. She has nightmares. She's afraid to be alone. She asks me constantly if I'm going to leave her too. Her mother didn't just abandon her in the woods, she abandoned the sacred trust between parent and child. She chose her selfish desires over her daughter's life. No sentence can undo that damage, but I'm asking this court to ensure that Sofia Torres never has the opportunity to hurt Emma again. Judge Brennan looked at Sofia with an expression of pure contempt. Mrs. Torres, I have presided over thousands of cases in my career. Yours is among the most disturbing. You planned for months to abandon your 8-year-old daughter in a remote location, knowing she had a medical condition, knowing she could die. You did this not out of desperation or mental illness, but because she was inconvenient to your affair. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You have shown no genuine understanding of the trauma you inflicted on your child. The judge paused. On count 1, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison. On count 2, 5 years to run consecutively. On count 3, 3 years to run concurrently. Total sentence, 13 years with eligibility for parole after serving 10 years. Sofia screamed. Her lawyer tried to calm her, but she was hysterical. This is too much. Please. I made a mistake. I love my daughter. Judge Brennan's voice was ice. If you loved your daughter, we wouldn't be here. Bailiff, remove the defendant. I watched as they led Sofia away in handcuffs, still screaming and crying. I felt nothing but relief. 1 year later, Emma and I stood in our new backyard watching the sunset. We'd moved to a different city for a fresh start. New schools, new job, new friends who didn't know our story. Emma was in intensive therapy and doing remarkably well. She still had nightmares occasionally, but they were becoming less frequent. She'd made friends at her new school and joined an art class she loved. I had full custody, a supportive network, and a job that let me work from home 3 days a week to be present for Emma. Sofia was in prison where she would stay for at least 10 more years. Kyle had been released after serving 18 months of his 3-year sentence, with strict parole conditions. He'd moved to another state. Emma tugged my hand. Daddy, can we roast marshmallows tonight? I smiled down at my brave, beautiful daughter who had survived something no child should ever face. Absolutely, sweetheart. As we headed inside to get supplies, Emma stopped and hugged me tight. Daddy, I'm glad it's just us. I feel safe with you. Those words meant everything. My wife had betrayed us in the most shocking way, had literally tried to throw away our daughter's life. But Emma had survived. She had been saved by a kind truck driver and her own incredible courage. And now, finally, we were building a life defined not by the trauma we'd survived, but by the love and trust we shared. Justice had been served. My daughter was safe. And together we were healing.